All right, Harry. Tonight we're talking about why do bad things happen to good people. We're going to be in Genesis 50, starting in verse 18 to 21. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. We are your slaves, they said. But Joseph said to them, don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. And he reassured them and spoke kindly to them. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so why were Joseph's brothers terrified? Their father had died and there was no one left to protect them. And they remembered how badly they had treated Joseph.
Mhm.
So back to the beginning of the story. 17-year-old Joseph was favored by his father. He behaved well and respected God, unlike his older brothers. He had a couple of dreams that something great was planned for himself, dreams from God. His brothers hated him for all this. The father sent him one day to see how his brothers were doing tending the sheep. After several days, he finds them in a distant area. They see him coming and want to be rid of him. They sell him to their cousins, the Ishmaelites, as a slave going into Egypt. Now, let's see how he makes those dreams work. They return his clothes to their father, torn and bloodied by sheep blood. Father Jacob believes Joseph is dead. So Joseph is sold into Egypt to an Egyptian official by the name of Potiphar. He has a new career now as a servant. He accepts that. He works faithfully. God blesses him. Mrs. Potiphar has other plans for Joseph, but Joseph refused. She changed the story, and now Joseph ends up in prison. More bad stuff.
Mhm.
Going back, Joseph is faithful to his God and to his father. He's hated for it, sold into slavery. Joseph is faithful in Egypt to God and his boss, but he's thrown into prison. But Joseph stayed faithful even in prison. God blessed him there. Soon he was head prisoner. Two political prisoners had dreams. Joseph correctly interpreted the dreams by the hand of God. Prison life continued. Joseph remained faithful to God. One day, the king had a dream, actually, two of them. No one could help the king. An official remembered Joseph doing his dream correctly. Joseph was called in, explained the dream to the king. The king is relieved, believes Joseph, interviews him, and says, this is my man. Now, Joseph is number two ruler in Egypt, all in one day. It's a 13-year journey from fancy coat to fancy coat to learn humility, to get to know God and his faithfulness, to learn to serve in a greater way, to be ready to rescue his family from famine, and to start them on a 200-year stay in Egypt. Every God story that people have has many dark pages. In his love, he brings us through them again and again. To get from grade 6 to grade 7, we have to pass the tests. The Lord himself showed us how to suffer to be victorious. Victory isn't avoiding problems, victory is facing them head on in God's strength. Bad things happen to all people. It's just part of how life works. If we're faithful and God people, we work our way through them in his strength.
And just one more verse, right? I like it how it says it in Romans. It says, "For God works out all things to the good for those who love Him." And our job
Yeah.
is we just got to make sure we love Him. Just as we read in this Joseph story, he never left his faith in who God was during all these hardships.
Yeah, and it does work out for good, for sure. If we're faithful in that, and God had a plan here. God had a plan for Joseph, that plan of those beautiful dreams, but he didn't realize there was a few other steps in between.
Man, thanks a lot for this, Harry.
Right on.